This is fucking plastic. The whole top part is plastic.
Well, what if I told you that we now realize that the plastic touching food can shed the plastic itself as microparticles into the food, and then we eat the food. And okay, we've known this for maybe more than a decade. Maybe there's little plastic particles that come off. But, you know, hey, there's no harm, right? We haven't been able to discover it. I used to say that. Now, just within the last few years, we're beginning to pinpoint that, number one, plastics can actually embed themselves in our body. We know where. We also know that these plastics are associated with inflammation. That is a big red flag. The klaxon alarm should start going off. And third is that the volume of plastics that we're consuming is crazy. There was a study that came out recently that showed that in normal autopsies of people that didn't die of a brain problem, that when they were doing the autopsies and looking for plastic, that we could find them. And the amount of plastic that was found in the average human brain is about the amount you'd find in a typical plastic picnic spoon, just distributed throughout the brain. This is like it's a person who's died of something else. Wow. Does that mean that, you know, like you and I are actually, you got a plastic spoon worth of plastic in our brain? There's been some people that calculated, and this has been, the actual math has been challenged, but there was an estimate that, you know, some people might consume as much as a credit card's worth of plastic every single week in their food if they're not careful about it. And let me just tell you where we're finding microplastics. And, you know, I want to get to the point where we're talking about the healthy foods that can actually turn the ship around. How do we turn the battleship of unhealth back to health? So we're back on the course that everybody wants to go to. We want to go to that how do we find our North Star for health? So I do want to get to that, but let me just say something about microplastics. We've now found microplastics in the brain, as I mentioned to you. We found it in the bloodstream. A group in Italy actually looking at men who had narrowing of the carotid artery. That's the blood vessel feeding the brain comes from the heart right to the brain, the carotid artery.
Oh, through the neck.
Through the neck.
Yeah.
They found that the narrowing that can occur in some men can accumulate plastic. They can actually find plastic particles. There's photographs of the chunks of plastic, the particles, fragments of plastic in there, and they followed them over a period of time. Those men who had plastic embedded in their blood vessel lining had a 4-fold increase in the chances of having a fatal heart attack or a stroke years later.
400%.
Fourfold, yeah. Okay. Now that's not kidding, right? So now we're beginning to take notice of this, but we're also finding microplastics in breast milk.
For some mysterious reason, in the past few months, there's been loads of videos popping up all over social media of people buying what looks like fake food. It all started just a couple of weeks ago in the United States when several people started noticing that there was something off about the watermelon that they were buying on the supermarkets.
So I got this watermelon up, and I like to rinse my watermelon before I cut it, and
not once.
It's like pinning.
People say it comes out of nowhere.
Does anybody has
that you'll find them when you're not looking.
Problems with their watermelon like this?
I always laughed
oh my gosh.
This is the craziest thing I've ever seen.
At the idea that it would ever be me. People are and maybe this is just the beginning.
There are dozens of videos where people buy watermelon from the supermarket and it looks strange. Sometimes it looks like plastic, sometimes it makes these weird noises, and sometimes, or many times actually, it feels as if it's made out of rubber.
So I cut watermelon for my kids, and they're all bringing it right back, saying they don't like the texture. And I've seen enough videos of people posting rubbery watermelon. I can't believe I got one. I got a rubbery watermelon. The texture is so weird. Like, you gotta bend it so far before it will break.
But it wasn't just rubbery. There was something else about the watermelon that was bothering a lot of people.
Okay, y'all. I threw this watermelon out over a week ago. It smelled really good. Bought it from more. Cut it open, and it was like plastic. Tasting it was absolutely horrible. I didn't really know what to do with it, so I threw it outside. This is a week later. It looks like mud. What's going on?
It was pretty obvious that there was something off about the watermelon and a lot of people were noticing it. But here's the thing, it wasn't just the watermelons.
There you go.
People were also noticing the same thing happening with avocados, blueberries, bananas, and the list goes on.
We got it from the supermarket, but when she opens it and she breaks it in half, it gets very tough and doesn't really break. And when it pulls, it's like it's glue. It's very tight and doughy. It looks very, very fake and Play-Doh.
In this next video, Ari Osborne explains how she bought blueberries in the supermarket. When she gave it to her kid, she noticed that one of them looked like it was made out of rubber. Check this out.
It's left in her little bowl and I put it down the drain for the garbage disposal. And I push the button, you know, it's doing its thing, but there's a clanking and it sounds like something's stuck. So I go in the drain and there's a blueberry that's not breaking apart. It's not. I pick it up and why is there a rubber blueberry in my toddler's snack?
She cut it in half and it actually looks as if it's made out of silicone or something like that. Strange, isn't it? But it gets even stranger. In this next video, a woman tests out the food in the supermarket using a magnet, and this is what happens.
Look at this shit. Put a magnet that I got from here into the great chicken. Let's try great. Look at that shit.
After these videos were posted and became a viral sensation, it made a lot of people ask the same question. Are we possibly eating fake food? What's your take?
Plant-based protein powder. But what if the next alternative was made out of plastic? There's new research that could make it a reality.
All right, Stacey Delacat talked to a scientist about the process that could help fight hunger and pollution.
Food shortages are worsening around the world, and the plastic pollution crisis continues to intensify. What if there was one solution to both of these problems? A Michigan scientist thinks there could be.
What we're trying to do is to use microbes to take plastic and other inedible plant material and turn that into something that's nutritious.
The idea is to turn components of plastic into protein and other nutrients like fats and sugars.
You're continuing on with this Consumer Reports article. I highly recommend you go and look at the article. I've linked to it in my blog. And I also recommend that you Google the dangers of phthalates and look at some of the National Institutes of Health articles on it. Not that we can trust government health websites, but there's some interesting stuff on there as well. But someone asked me what about food that you buy at the grocery store? So I came to this list of prepared meals, which include Annie's organic cheesy ravioli can with 53,000 nanograms of phthalates per box. Chef Boyardee, big shocker there. Banquet, I grew up on those things. Chicken pot pie, 12,494 phthalates. You can't make this stuff up. So go look at the National Institutes of Health website about phthalates, and then look at this as well. So there you go.
So this is a clip of a street salesman who is selling pakora on the street. If you notice, he's opening the new oil plastic jugs using the hot oil that's already on the stove. He's essentially melting the plastic bag to open the oil in there. The guy right here keeps asking if they are plastic pakora, which basically is emphasizing the fact that there's probably a bunch of microplastics floating around here inside of this hot plastic and hot oil.
plastic that was sitting on the cast iron, because the cast iron is hot. It was sticking on there. Yeah, so this rice is not plastic. This is how you test your rice, and if it's plastic. There's a lot of plastic rice out there, so make sure to test your rice before you use it.
Of glyphosate or Roundup is going to be sprayed on our food crops this year?
On any plate. Today, our most common crops are genetically altered to resist the spraying of toxic pesticides. For example, the #1 crop in the United States, field corn, is almost entirely sprayed with glyphosate, a chemical suspected to cause cancer that's so oversprayed it's found its way into our drinking water.
These chemicals, which were considered dangerous to begin with, are now being used at rates that would have been inconceivable 20 years ago.
Every year, for every American alive, 3 pounds of toxic chemicals are sprayed onto the food grown on our farms.
That goes into the soil, it goes into the water, it goes into our bodies. It's not just on the food you eat, it's everywhere.
Most of the agricultural industry's pesticides and herbicides transfer directly through breast milk to babies. There are over 200 peer-reviewed studies that correlate the spraying of these toxic chemicals to effects like ADD in children, pediatric cancers, and birth defects. That's why juries have begun to award billions of dollars in damages to people who contracted cancer after using glyphosate.
We know, for example, that glyphosate, which is also known as Roundup, has an effect on the gut microbiome that may lead to disturbances that can create disease, including cancer.
A big reason these chemicals make us sick is because just as toxic chemicals kill the microbes in the soil, they also kill the microbes in our bodies.
What I tell people is your body can handle acute stresses, but it cannot handle chronic stresses. Soil ecosystems the same way. If you keep dumping the fungicides, you keep dumping the herbicides, you keep dumping the insecticides, you keep doing the tillage, chronic stress, it doesn't function anymore.
Since chemical agriculture ramped up worldwide in the 1970s, we have lost 1/3 of the Earth's topsoil. But industrial agriculture isn't just harming our soils, it's also affecting something much larger.
Design a chemical to damage or destroy the foundations of health, it would be glyphosate. And the bigger Roundup has a lot of poisons in it. The chief poison is glyphosate. But starting in 2006, Monsanto had the brilliant idea of expanding its markets by convincing farmers to spray Roundup just before harvest on the grains and the beans. So it's higher on oats than it is on soybeans. It's higher in hummus because it's sprayed on chickpeas and lentils and peas, beans, wheat. So you can have a non-GMO project verified loaf of wheat, loaf of bread that's been sprayed with Roundup 3 days before harvest. Roundup was originally patented as a descaler to clean the mineral buildup in pipes and boilers in factories because it was a chelator. It grabbed all the minerals and stripped it. So many diseases are mineral deficient diseases. Glyphosate was also patented as an antibiotic, but unlike all the other antibiotics that we know, it preferentially kills the beneficial bacteria. So when you look at a model of human microbiome and you feed it food for 3 weeks and then you put Roundup in, it destroys the biodiversity, cuts down the short-chain fatty acids, changes what it produces, increases the pathogens. It also is a toxin to the mitochondria. And for those who are involved in the body, it damages the actin, which is the structural components of the cells, and the mitochondria collapse. Mitochondria is the energy centers. Remember the fatigue and the brain fog? When you want to tell whether someone is old or young, you look at the two tissues. The only difference they could find is the damaged or the undamaged mitochondria. There's a mitochondria theory of aging. There's a mitochondria theory of... And mitochondria is damaged from glyphosate and Roundup.
The problem is animal studies show that dicot damages your gut wall, disrupts your microbiome, and harms major organs, just like paraquat, just like Roundup. And yet we're unaware that it's even happening here because it's approved by the EPA. Nobody has to put it on a label. No one has to let you know that it's been used in the process of harvesting the crop. So what this tells us is that when regulators crack down on one toxin, the industry just swaps in another wolf in sheep's clothing.
Did you know that over 180 million pounds of glyphosate or Roundup is going to be sprayed on our food crops this year? You know, so everything ripens at the same time.
The maker of Roundup weed killer says the glyphosate levels in this report are, quote, far below the established safety standards. We also reached out to the EPA and the FDA, but have not heard back. Our Dr. David Agus is a cancer specialist, and he joins us now. So the Environmental Working Group, the advocacy organization, says this is too much glyphosate. Other organizations say it's not. Bottom line, should we be taking a risk with this in our cereal?
The bottom line is we just don't know. And the problem is when you eat something, say glyphosate, there's a 10, 20-year lag between disease and the intervention. So glyphosate came about in the 60s. It was meant to clean pipes originally. And then it was a weed killer, and it was used, but not dramatically. But then in the 90s, GMO fruit came out, and Roundup-ready crops, which meant you can kill all the weeds but not the crops, and usage went through the roof.
In 93, somebody figured out a way that there was certain bacteria that glyphosate would not kill. And they said we could take a gene out of that bacteria and put it into a corn seed and develop a corn that cannot be killed by glyphosate. So they developed Roundup-ready corn. And that corn, you can pour glyphosate all over it and it will do nothing to it. So now you could fire all of those workers who were expensive, and you hire one airplane and they fly over the fields, they saturate the entire landscape with glyphosate, and everything dies except the Roundup-ready corn. And within a couple of years, Roundup-ready corn was now 90% of the corn, 95% of the corn in the United States is now Roundup-ready corn.
So when they started doing this, there's a direct result, like you can see the increase in celiac disease. You can see, is this like documented?
No, that's not documented. But there's a whole range of diseases that are now, the different levels of science have linked to glyphosate exposure. When we sued Monsanto, the judge needs to make a threshold decision about whether there's sufficient science to show it's carrying. That is a very high threshold. So, of all of the diseases that are probably caused, almost certainly caused by glyphosate, the only one to pass that threshold was the case that we bought for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So at that point, we had enough rat studies, enough human studies. We had about 10 of each. And we were able to go to the judge and say, we got enough science on this now to show that it's that non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is being caused by glyphosate.